Hi, everyone. This is David Horton. I'm the Director of Learning Networks with the Core Collaborative, and really happy to have you be part of this video blog series and joining me on this. This is part 2 of 3 of the Collaborate 3 Easy Steps to Team Transformation in the topic of innovative change. If you have not participated in the introduction or part 1, I would encourage you to go back and start there with the team or for your own individual learning, and then come to this section. This section will be rather complicated if you haven't done the previous sections. So after you conclude this one, I would encourage you to go back and participate that way, so that this kind of strings all together for you and makes a lot more sense. So in any event, very happy to have you with me as we dive into this. We're going to get into the 3 easy steps today, and we'll work on that about how we can work on our team processes and building relational trust through the conversations around innovative change. So one thing I would share, though, if you are on the recording, I would highly encourage you at this point to stop the recording and have in front of you Appendix A1 and A2, Appendix B, Appendix C1, C2, and C3, and Appendix D. And if you have a copy of my book, Leading School Teams, I would encourage you to have that out in front as well. So the reason I say that is a lot like this slide that you see now, is going into this as a team leader, a team, or an administrator to have dialogue, build relational trust, and build team function. You need tools. You don't want to go into those things alone. You don't want to go into them unprepared. And the tools that you'll see and reference today are built in a way to open up thinking level conversation, to have people share and dialogue. That's the purpose of these tools. These tools will help you think as a team, and this will build that relational trust. So I highly encourage you to use tools. Do not try and build relational trust without supports. It often doesn't work well. Okay, so giving you a chance there to go get those. So now let's get started. So as we get into this section, part 2, we're going to accomplish it in 2 places. The first will be a micro view, and that will be the work that teams do. And then we'll talk about a macro view that would be more organizational or more system-wide. And we'll accomplish that at the end of our blog today. So let's dive into the beginning piece. This is more what's applicable for teams at a school level or district level, this micro level, 3 easy steps. And those of you that are familiar with the impact team process will recognize the 3 easy steps. That is evidence, analysis, action. And we'll talk about these in detail as we go. But the idea would be, we want to look at the conversations that we have through the lens of being very purposeful, given the evidence, analysis, and action. We don't want to have open-ended conversations that go nowhere. We don't want to have purposeless things that we do. We want to do things that are driven to have evidence, that we can analyze that and then take purposeful action. So let's get into it. So the evidence that we're going to do, and this is where you'll need to have those tools in front of you so that you can reference. And if you have them all spread out in front of you, I'll give you a quick overview of how those would go. In step 1, in the evidence step, we're going to do 4 things. We're going to use, select, read, and share. The using is to use the self-assessment tools, and those are Appendix A1 and A2. So at this point, if you're on the recording or with a team, stop the recording and take the self-assessment tools of Appendix A1 and A2. And they're taken by looking at things that are not like us, somewhat like us, or like us. And then when you come back, we'll pick up the next one. The next section is select. From the appendix areas A1 and A2 that you read through, you probably can find that there are some areas that are in common with one another, that may be in need of action or in need of discussion. So if you're a team leader, this is a moment that you would want to have a conversation about selection, that we're going to select 3 areas from Appendix A1 and 3 areas from Appendix A2 that are most in common across the team. So we're looking for something that more than one person selected that was of interest to them, that might benefit the team, and have that as a working norm before you do the selection, so that no one's feelings are hurt that their item wasn't chosen, that we're just looking at something that's in majority benefit for the team. The next section now is read. So on Appendix A1 and A2, you'll notice that those prompts lead you to either a cluster, an item vignette, if you're on Appendix A1, or a chapter in leading school teams if you're on Appendix A2. This would be the time that you would now stop and go get those selected areas from the readings to have in front of you. And you would now read those vignettes or small areas. So part of your selection leads you to these cluster areas or item areas for reading, or to a chapter area of leading school teams where you will select one of the conversations and readings from that. Okay, the final section now is to share. When the team reads the vignette and you get to the conversation prompt, this is where you will share out loud with one another your thoughts about that prompt. Team leaders, you would want to enter that by giving everyone a norm that we're going to have 30 seconds to share per person, so that no one has to go beyond that, and that people know that they have the floor for that period of time. So as you do that, that will be a way to give everyone that airtime needed to expand their idea, share their idea. Now, as people are sharing, it leads us right into step 2. The analysis is, we want to be gathering the key ideas that people share on Appendix D. So part of the sharing in step 1 is to record on Appendix D. And you're recording the low inference notes that people are sharing. So this is the evidence section of Appendix D while people are sharing. And using the Appendix D leads us to the analysis. So going from the sharing and collecting of these low inference notes, of meaning no judgment, we're just recording what people say, we're recording their idea, we're now ready to analyze all of that share out. And in the analysis section of Appendix D, we're now going to cluster together the ideas that seem to rise to the top most often from that share out. So as people are sharing those ideas and you collect them, now as a team, have a conversation and collect together what seem to be the ideas that continue to rise to the top. And team leaders, you're going to host a discussion with the team about what would be 1 or 2 of those items that seem to be most ready for us to take action on, things that we could do something about, so that we want to move from the reading to the discussion to the sharing to now collecting and narrowing down to what would be the items we could take action on, which leads us squarely into the action phase of step 3. So now on Appendix D, if you look down at the action section, we're now ready to take those 1 or 2 areas that we had conversation around or that we found action steps on, and now build an action plan in step 3, something we can do, so that we don't just have a purposeless conversation or an aimless conversation. We want those conversations to be a signal to the team that when we come together to talk about things, we share out ideas that are productive so that we can do something about it, that we can be innovative about those areas that we noticed. So In Appendix D, in the action section, this is where you will take a moment and build an action plan that's very simple. What are we going to do? Who is going to do what? And by when will we get it done? So that if there is something that we are taking action on, that we can be accountable to come back and get that done by a certain time, so that the team recognizes that when we notice something that needs to get done, we get it done. And we're building that trust with each other that we can set out to accomplish these things and get them done. And then lastly, of course, would be to do the action plan. It's crucial that the team set that as a working norm, that we come back and check on our action plan progress in each meeting or each time we get together, so that we know that we're still holding ourselves accountable, that what was important enough for us to talk about, it's important enough for us to get it done. And this is a very productive way to build that relational trust. If you have any questions about how to use those appendices and to use that structure, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at daveh@thecorecollaborative.com. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, or even to hop in and help you as a team leader, as a team, use those tools and to find your way to be very productive in doing that. For those on the call that might be school administrators or district administrators, let me share a little bit about macro level use of building relational trust in the learning network. One of the things I would highly encourage you to do would be looking at the blog. You could look at the Core Collaborative's website about a tool called Core Connections. I would encourage you to do that if you're looking at more system-wide checking of relational trust and building a learning network. It can be used at a school level and at a district level, but it's a scientifically based way of looking at how people are feeling about trust and their productivity. If you have any questions about using something like that, that would give you tremendous data to build on and check your culture and climate at your campus, I'd be happy to connect you to that and share on how you could be um, using that for setting goals and building relational trust in a network across an entire system. And then finally, just a word of caution is, remember, when you're in this area of building learning networks and relational trust, it's a very personal thing for people, and you don't want people to feel that their comments are going to be used against them, or that they're going to be um, made fun of for the things that they share. So it's very, very, very critical that you set those norms in advance to recognize that as a team, when we talk about and work on the learning network and building relational trust and using these tools, that every idea and everything being shared is of equal face value, and that we don't make judgment about what people share. What we're listening for would be for those great ideas, great insights, um, uh, areas of wisdom and experience that people share, that we capture that instead of just letting it go by. We want that to be captured in these appendices and in these workflows, so that we can make it productive. But it is very important that you set a norm to protect everyone, and that everyone knows that what we share together as a team stays here as a team, and that we don't use that in any other way. So this would be a good time, if you're listening to it as a recording, to check and stop with each other and say, how are we feeling? Um, how does this feel for you? Do you think this would be something productive for you to work on? Do you think it's something that as a school you could work on, or as a district, that you could make it a point to work on relational trust and build that network with each other? So stop and have that conversation if you're on the recording. And finally, just as a call to action, of course, it would be this: it would be, use the tools, use the stuff and make it a part of what you do. Make building relational trust and having purposeful conversation be part of what you do. Um, if you fail to take those opportunities to have conversation and build relational trust, it's a lot like Wayne Gretzky's quote, right? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So in your meetings, 100% of the time that you don't focus on relational trust, you're not building it. And you're not focusing on the learning network. So please do it. Use the tools, make it a purposeful part of what you do. It really helps people feel connected to the team and to the action that they're doing together, and makes you more productive both in the team and in the classroom. You can find all the tools, of course, at leadteamlearn.com/blog. And of course, you know that at any time, if you have any questions, again, reach out to me, daveh@thecorecollaborative.com. Really appreciate you being part of this Lunch and Learn series. Hope that you'll reflect on these and use them as a team and find them to be very productive for you. And finally, of course, all of our resources. We have lots of things out there for you: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, and of course, Twitter. Join us and find us at all those places, and we're always happy to share and think with you. So with that, hope you have a wonderful experience and look forward to having you join me on the next series for part 3 of 3 of 3 easy steps to team transformation. Thanks.